Most people spend their entire lives chasing approval. They smile when they should remain silent. They forgive when they should set boundaries. They explain themselves when no explanation is owed. They believe that kindness alone will earn respect. But history, psychology, and human nature reveal a different truth. People do not respect what they can easily control. They do not value what is endlessly available. And they rarely fear crossing someone who never establishes consequences. The world is governed by perception. Before people decide how they will treat you, they first decide who they believe you are. If your actions communicate weakness, hesitation, and desperation for acceptance, then disrespect becomes inevitable. But when your behavior consistently reflects confidence, discipline, and self-respect, people instinctively become cautious. People often believe that respect is something others choose to give, but in reality, respect begins long before another person makes that decision. It begins with the standards you establish for yourself and the consistency with which you defend them. Every interaction becomes a silent negotiation, where people observe what you tolerate, what you ignore, and what you refuse to accept. Human nature is remarkably simple in this regard. People constantly search for boundaries, whether consciously or unconsciously. They test them with small comments, subtle jokes, minor acts of disrespect, and tiny requests that seem insignificant on their own. They are not always trying to harm you. More often, they are simply discovering how much space they can occupy in your life without resistance. Your response to these small moments determines how they will treat you in much larger situations. The mistake most people make is believing that maintaining peace requires sacrificing their standards. They avoid confrontation because they fear being disliked. They laugh at insults to avoid appearing sensitive. They agree to things they never wanted, because saying no feels uncomfortable. In doing so, they unknowingly teach others that their boundaries are flexible. Once people recognize that your principles can be bent by guilt, pressure, or manipulation, they naturally begin pushing further. This is not because everyone is cruel, but because human beings instinctively respect strength and certainty more than hesitation and inconsistencies. Strong standards are not about controlling other people. They are about controlling yourself. They define what you will accept and what you will walk away from. A person with standards does not argue endlessly to convince others to behave properly. Instead, they quietly remove themselves from situations that violate their principles. That decision alone carries enormous psychological weight. When people realize that access to your time, attention, and trust depends on treating you with respect, they become far more careful in how they interact with you. Many individuals confuse kindness with weakness because they fail to understand the difference between generosity and the absence of boundaries. Genuine kindness comes from strength. It is the choice to treat others well without expecting anything in return. Weakness, however, comes from fear, the fear of rejection, conflict, loneliness, or disapproval. When your kindness is driven by fear, people eventually recognize it. They notice that you continue giving, even when you receive nothing back. They realize you forgive every offense without consequence. They discover that you remain available regardless of how poorly they treat you. In that moment, respect begins to disappear because your actions communicate that your standards are negotiable. History repeatedly demonstrates that the individuals who command lasting respect are those whose principles remain stable, regardless of external pressure. They do not change their values to fit the opinions of the crowd. They are willing to lose opportunities, relationships, and temporary comfort rather than compromise their integrity. This consistency creates predictability in the minds of others. People know exactly where they stand because the person's standards never fluctuate according to convenience. That reliability becomes a source of quiet authority. There is another psychological principle at work. Every time you compromise your standards to please someone else, you send a message not only to them but also to yourself. You begin lowering your own perception of your value. Confidence is built through repeated acts of self-respect. Each time you defend a boundary, keep a promise to yourself, or refuse to tolerate disrespect, your mind records evidence that your principles matter. Over time, this internal confidence becomes visible externally. You stand differently. You speak with greater certainty. You no longer seek permission to exist. Others notice this transformation, even if they cannot explain it. One of the greatest sources of power is the ability to say no without anger, apology, or excessive explanation. Most people weaken their position by over-explaining every decision. They feel obligated to justify their boundaries until everyone approves of them. But confident individuals understand that every explanation becomes an invitation for negotiation. The more you defend your standards verbally, the more others believe they can persuade you to abandon them. Sometimes a calm, respectful refusal communicates far greater strength than a lengthy argument ever could. Standards also require consistency. A boundary enforced only occasionally is not a boundary at all. If you tolerate disrespect one day and object to it the next, people become confused about where the limits truly exist. Consistency removes uncertainty. It teaches others that your values do not depend on your mood, your circumstances, or the identity of the person standing before you. Whether dealing with a close friend, a colleague, or a stranger, your principles remain the same. That unwavering consistency earns admiration because it reflects integrity rather than convenience. Another important truth is that not everyone will appreciate your standards. Some people benefited from the version of you that never said no, never challenged them, and never demanded mutual respect. When you begin enforcing healthier boundaries, those individuals may accuse you of changing. In reality, you are not becoming difficult. You are becoming clear. People who respected you for your generosity will continue respecting you. Those who only valued your compliance will often leave. While this may seem like a loss, it is actually evidence that your standards are working exactly as intended. True power is not measured by how many people approve of you. It is measured by how firmly you protect your character, when approval is no longer guaranteed. The moment people understand that your principles cannot be bought with compliments, manipulated through guilt, or weakened by pressure, they begin treating you differently. They recognize that every privilege of your attention, trust, and presence must be earned rather than assumed. That realization is where genuine respect is born, and where the fear of disrespecting you quietly begins to take root. One of the greatest illusions in human interaction is the belief that power belongs to the loudest person in the room. Many people assume that raising their voice, expressing every emotion, or reacting immediately to every challenge makes them appear strong. In reality, the opposite is often true. The individual who cannot control their emotions is placing the steering wheel of their life into someone else's hands. The moment another person can predict your reactions, they gain influence over your behavior. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings or pretending they do not exist. It is about deciding when, how, and whether those feelings deserve to be expressed. That decision alone separates those who are respected from those who are easily manipulated. Human beings constantly observe emotional patterns. Without realizing it, they study what makes you angry, what makes you nervous, what causes you to become defensive, and what triggers your frustration. Every emotional outburst provides valuable information about your weaknesses. If someone discovers that a simple insult can ruin your entire day, they have found a button they can press whenever they want to control your mood. If they know criticism immediately forces you to defend yourself, they can keep you trapped in endless arguments. This is why emotional discipline is one of the most powerful forms of self-defense. It denies others the satisfaction of controlling your state of mind. The strongest people understand that emotions are temporary, but decisions made during emotional moments often produce permanent consequences. A single angry message can destroy years of trust. One impulsive reaction can damage a reputation built over decades. One careless statement spoken in frustration can never be taken back, no matter how sincere the apology may be afterward. Those who possess real power recognize this danger. They create distance between emotion and action. Instead of reacting instantly, they pause. That pause may last a few seconds, a few hours, or even several days, depending on the situation. During that time, emotion loses its grip, allowing reason to take control. Calmness has an unusual psychological effect on other people. When someone expects you to become angry, defensive, or emotional, your calm response creates uncertainty. They no longer know how to influence you because the reaction they anticipated never arrives. Uncertainty makes people cautious. It forces them to reconsider their strategy because they realize they cannot predict your next move. In psychology, unpredictability often commands more respect than aggression. A person whose behavior is guided by wisdom rather than impulse becomes difficult to manipulate, and people naturally become more careful in dealing with them. Many individuals believe they must always explain themselves when challenged. They feel every accusation deserves an immediate response. Every rumor requires a defense, and every insult demands retaliation. But every explanation gives attention to the person attempting to provoke you. Sometimes silence communicates greater confidence than words ever could. Silence suggests that your self-worth is not dependent on convincing others of your value. It demonstrates emotional independence, a quality that quietly intimidates those who rely on emotional chaos to gain influence. Being unpredictable does not mean behaving randomly or becoming inconsistent. It means refusing to fit into the expectations others have created for you. If people assume you will always forgive, they become careless with your trust. If they believe you will always remain available, they begin taking your presence for granted. If they know you will always respond immediately, they stop valuing your time. Strategic unpredictability interrupts these assumptions. Sometimes you respond quickly, sometimes you allow time to pass. Sometimes you engage in conversation, other times you simply observe. This measured variation forces others to remain attentive, because they cannot rely on predictable patterns to manipulate you. History offers countless examples of influential leaders whose greatest strength was their composure under pressure. While everyone around them panicked, they remained calm. While others rushed toward emotional decisions, they patiently gathered information. This calmness inspired confidence because people instinctively trust those who appear capable of thinking clearly during moments of uncertainty. Emotional stability becomes a silent demonstration of competence. It tells the world that your decisions are based on judgment rather than temporary feelings. Another overlooked aspect of emotional control is the ability to remain unaffected by praise. Many people focus only on resisting criticism, but excessive dependence on compliments can be equally dangerous. The person who constantly seeks validation becomes easy to manipulate through flattery. Others quickly learn that admiration can influence your decisions. Genuine confidence, however, does not rise with applause or collapse under criticism. It remains steady because it is rooted in self-awareness rather than external approval. Patience is another weapon possessed by emotionally disciplined individuals. Most people are uncomfortable with waiting. They rush into opportunities, relationships, and conflicts because they fear missing out or appearing passive. Yet patience often reveals information that impatience hides. Time exposes true intentions. It reveals character, motives, and patterns that cannot be seen during moments of urgency. Those who master patience frequently avoid mistakes that impulsive people repeatedly make. They understand that every decision becomes stronger when supported by observation rather than emotion. There is also tremendous strength in refusing to compete for attention. In today's world, many people feel compelled to comment on every issue, defend every opinion, and prove themselves in every conversation. This constant need for recognition creates unnecessary vulnerability. Those who possess genuine confidence understand that not every battle deserves their participation. Sometimes the greatest victory is choosing not to engage at all. Walking away from meaningless conflict is not weakness. It is evidence that your energy is too valuable to waste on distractions. Ultimately, emotional mastery transforms the way people perceive you. They begin recognizing that intimidation, guilt, criticism, and manipulation no longer produce the desired results. Your calmness becomes your reputation. Your patience becomes your advantage. Your unpredictability becomes your protection. Instead of wondering how you will react, people begin wondering whether you will react at all. That uncertainty creates caution, and caution creates respect. When others realize they cannot control your emotions, they also realize they cannot easily control you. And that is one of the clearest demonstrations of true power. A reputation is one of the few forms of power that continues working even when you are not present. Before you enter a room, people have often already formed expectations about who you are. Those expectations are shaped by your past actions, your consistency, the way you treat others, and the stories people tell about you. This is why reputation is far more valuable than image. An image can be created overnight through clever words or appearances, but a reputation is built slowly through repeated behavior. It is earned through discipline, reliability, and unwavering character. Once established, it becomes an invisible force that influences how people speak to you, negotiate with you, and even think about disrespecting you. Many people underestimate the power of consistency. They believe that one impressive moment will define them forever. In reality, people remember patterns far more than isolated events. If you are confident one day but insecure the next, polite in one conversation but disrespectful in another, your reputation becomes uncertain. Uncertainty weakens authority because people no longer know what to expect from you. On the other hand, when your behavior reflects the same values regardless of the situation, others begin trusting your character. They know that your principles are not temporary performances but permanent parts of your identity. Every decision you make either strengthens or weakens your reputation. Arriving on time communicates discipline. Keeping your promises demonstrates integrity. Speaking honestly, even when it is uncomfortable, builds credibility. Remaining calm under pressure signals emotional strength. These actions may appear small individually, but over time they create an identity that others cannot ignore. Eventually, people begin describing you with words such as dependable, confident, disciplined, and composed. Those descriptions become your reputation, and that reputation starts influencing every future interaction before you even say a single word. One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to defend their reputation through arguments. When someone spreads false information or attempts to damage your image, the natural instinct is to respond immediately and prove them wrong. While there are situations where clarification is necessary, Constantly defending yourself often has the opposite effect. Excessive explanations suggest insecurity. People begin wondering why you feel such a strong need to convince everyone of your innocence. Truly respected individuals understand that reputation is protected primarily through consistent behavior, not endless self-defense. When your actions repeatedly contradict false accusations, your character eventually speaks louder than the rumors themselves. There is another psychological principle that makes reputation so powerful. Human beings naturally rely on past experiences to predict future behavior. If you have consistently demonstrated confidence, fairness, and self-respect, people assume those qualities will continue into the future. This assumption affects how they approach you. They become more careful with their words because they already expect a certain standard of conduct. They think twice before attempting manipulation because previous experience has taught them that such tactics do not work on you. In this way, your reputation begins protecting you without requiring constant effort. Discipline plays a central role in building this invisible authority. A disciplined person does not need to announce their goals or constantly seek recognition for their achievements. Their work speaks for itself. Others notice the results without needing dramatic presentations or endless self-promotion. This quiet confidence is remarkably persuasive because it feels authentic. People instinctively admire individuals whose actions consistently match their words. Over time, this alignment between speech and behavior creates trust, and trust is one of the strongest foundations of respect. Another important aspect of reputation is knowing when not to speak. Many people damage their credibility by sharing every opinion, revealing every plan, or participating in every argument. They mistake visibility for influence, however. The more frequently you speak without purpose, the less value people assign to your words. Those who possess genuine authority choose their moments carefully. They speak with intention rather than impulse. Because they are not constantly seeking attention, their words carry greater weight when they finally choose to express them. It is equally important to protect your reputation by choosing your associations wisely. People often judge you not only by your own actions but also by the company you keep. If you consistently surround yourself with dishonest, irresponsible, or disrespectful individuals, others begin questioning your own judgment and values. On the other hand, relationships built on integrity, ambition, and mutual respect strengthen your own reputation. This does not mean seeking status through influential people. It means understanding that character is contagious. The standards of those closest to you inevitably influence how the world perceives you. Patience is essential, because a meaningful reputation cannot be rushed. In a world obsessed with instant recognition, many people attempt shortcuts. They exaggerate achievements, create false impressions of success, or seek attention through controversy. While these strategies may produce temporary visibility, they rarely produce lasting respect. Authentic reputation grows gradually. It is built through years of disciplined choices, fulfilled commitments, and unwavering principles. Although this process requires time, its results are remarkably durable. A reputation founded on truth survives challenges that false appearances cannot. There will also be moments when maintaining your reputation requires difficult decisions. You may have to walk away from opportunities that compromise your values. You may need to refuse offers that promise immediate rewards but damage your integrity. You may lose relationships with people who benefited from a weaker version of you. These sacrifices often feel costly in the short term, yet they preserve something far more valuable in the long term: your credibility. Once credibility is lost, rebuilding it is far more difficult than protecting it from the beginning. The most respected individuals rarely announce their strength. They do not need to remind others of their importance, because their reputation has already done the work. People know they keep their word. They know they cannot be easily manipulated. They know they remain calm under pressure and refuse to compromise their principles for temporary gain. As these qualities become widely recognized, something remarkable happens. Others begin adjusting their behavior before any conflict even arises. They choose their words more carefully, honor their commitments more consistently, and think twice before showing disrespect. That is the true power of reputation. It speaks long before you do, influences people without force, and creates a level of respect that cannot be achieved through intimidation alone. Words are among the most powerful tools a person possesses, yet they are also the easiest to misuse. Most people believe that influence comes from speaking more, explaining more, defending more, and constantly making their presence known. They assume silence is a sign of weakness or uncertainty. Human psychology, however, often reveals the opposite. The individual who knows when to remain silent demonstrates a level of confidence that cannot be easily imitated. Silence creates curiosity, uncertainty, and respect because it denies others the emotional reaction they often expect. When people cannot predict your thoughts or provoke an immediate response, they lose one of their greatest advantages over you. Every conversation is a psychological exchange. While one person is speaking, the other is observing. They are studying your facial expressions, your tone of voice, your emotional reactions, and even your hesitation. The more you speak impulsively, the more information you reveal about yourself. You expose your fears, your insecurities, your desires, and your weaknesses without realizing it. Those who understand human nature know that information is power. The less unnecessary information you reveal, the less material others have to manipulate you. Strategic silence is not about refusing to communicate. It is about communicating only when your words have purpose and value. Many conflicts continue because people feel an overwhelming need to have the final word. Someone criticizes them, and they immediately respond. Another person argues, and they continue the debate until both sides are emotionally exhausted. In most cases, neither person changes their opinion. The only result is damaged relationships and wasted energy. Powerful individuals understand that not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every insult deserves a reaction. Sometimes silence is a statement in itself. It communicates that your emotional state is too stable to be disturbed by meaningless opinions. This type of composure often frustrates those seeking attention because they cannot achieve the reaction they were hoping to provoke. Distant operates in much the same way. Human beings naturally value what is limited. Something that is constantly available often becomes invisible. This principle applies not only to possessions but also to people. If you are always available, always saying yes, always responding instantly, and always sacrificing your own priorities for others, your presence gradually loses its value. Familiarity without boundaries often leads to complacency. People begin assuming your time, energy, and attention belong to them. They stop appreciating what costs them nothing. Selective distance changes this dynamic completely. It reminds others that your presence is a privilege rather than an entitlement. This does not mean becoming cold, arrogant, or emotionally unavailable. Instead, it means protecting your time and attention with intention. You choose where your energy goes, instead of allowing everyone else to decide for you. When people realize they cannot demand unlimited access to you, they naturally begin respecting the moments they do share with you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must constantly prove their loyalty to maintain relationships. They fear that setting boundaries or taking space will push others away. Healthy relationships, however, are strengthened by mutual respect, not constant availability. Distance allows people to recognize your value, because absence often reveals what constant presence conceals. When you are no longer immediately accessible, people become aware of the role you played in their lives. They begin appreciating your contributions, instead of taking them for granted. Silence also gives you the opportunity to observe. While others rush to fill every moment with conversation, you gain valuable insight simply by listening. People frequently reveal their intentions when they believe no one is carefully paying attention. They expose inconsistencies, hidden motives, and emotional patterns through their own words. A patient observer gathers information that an impatient speaker often misses. This knowledge allows you to make wiser decisions because your actions are based on understanding rather than assumption. There is another psychological advantage to speaking less. When your words become rare, they naturally carry greater weight. Imagine two individuals in a meeting. One speaks continuously, offering opinions on every topic, while the other listens carefully and contributes only when necessary. Over time, people begin anticipating the second person's comments because they associate them with thoughtful judgment rather than constant noise. Their silence increases the perceived value of their speech. This principle has remained true throughout history. Leaders who measured their words were often remembered for their wisdom, while those who spoke endlessly were remembered for their inconsistency. Selective distance also protects your emotional balance. Many people spend enormous amounts of time surrounded by negativity, criticism, gossip, and unnecessary drama simply because they struggle to walk away. They believe enduring toxic environments demonstrates patience or kindness. In reality, constantly exposing yourself to destructive influences gradually affects your own mindset. Choosing distance from individuals who repeatedly disrespect your peace is not an act of hostility. It is an act of self-respect. It communicates that your mental clarity is more valuable than temporary approval. There will always be people who misunderstand your silence. Some may interpret it as weakness because they expect an emotional reaction. Others may accuse you of changing when you begin protecting your time more carefully. These responses should not discourage you. In fact, they often confirm that your boundaries are working. Individuals who genuinely respect you will adapt to your standards. Those who benefited from unlimited access to your attention may become uncomfortable because the dynamic has changed. That discomfort is not your responsibility to fix. Silence also strengthens confidence because it teaches you to become comfortable without external validation. Many people speak simply to avoid awkwardness or to gain reassurance from others. They feel anxious whenever there is a pause in conversation because they associate silence with rejection. Learning to remain calm during silence develops inner security. You no longer depend on constant interaction to feel important. Your confidence comes from within, rather than from the opinions surrounding you. Ultimately, strategic silence and selective distance are not techniques designed to manipulate others. They are habits that demonstrate self-control, discipline, and self-respect. When people realize they cannot easily access your emotions, your time, or your attention, they begin approaching you differently. They think more carefully before speaking carelessly. They appreciate your presence because it is no longer guaranteed. They recognize that your calmness is a choice, your silence has meaning, and your absence carries consequences. In that realization, respect grows naturally, and the fear of losing your trust or your presence becomes far more powerful than any argument or display of force could ever achieve.